I lost the weight my body had been holding onto since menopause. Not by eating less, not by cutting carbs, not by doing more cardio. I lost it by fixing 3 mistakes I didn't even know I was making. And I only found out at 61, after almost a decade of doing everything right and watching nothing change. Here's the strange part. The 3 things that were blocking me weren't bad habits. They were things I was doing because I thought they were the healthy choice. That's what made them so hard to catch. I want to be honest with you about where I started. For almost 8 years after menopause hit, I did what most of us are told to do. I ate less. I moved more. I counted every calorie some weeks just to prove to myself I wasn't imagining it. And the number on the scale barely moved. My clothes fit the same, sometimes worse. I remember standing in a fitting room at 58, staring at a pair of jeans that used to fit, thinking something is wrong with me. Not with my willpower, with my understanding of what my body actually needed after 50. I was following the same rules I'd used my whole life, in a body that had quietly changed the rules on me. It took me 3 years and a lot of trial and error to find the actual mistakes, not the ones in diet articles, the ones in my own daily routine. Here's the first one, and it's probably the one you're doing right now without realizing it. If you've been eating less to lose weight after menopause, I need you to hear this before you cut anything else. For years, I believed fewer calories always meant more weight loss. That's true in your 30s. After menopause, when estrogen drops, your body becomes more sensitive to being underfed, not less. Chronic undereating signals your body to hold onto fat rather than release it, especially around the midsection. This has to do with how your body manages stress hormones after menopause. When you eat too little for too long, cortisol tends to rise, and researchers have found that elevated cortisol is specifically linked to fat storage around the abdomen, the exact place most of us are trying to lose it from. During menopause, when estrogen is no longer buffering that stress response the way it used to, this effect tends to show up more easily than it did in your 30s. What changed things for me wasn't eating more of everything. It was making sure I never went more than 4 hours without real food. A boiled egg, a handful of nuts, actual meals, instead of skipped ones, followed by guilt eating at night. My weight didn't move for weeks. Then, almost without noticing, my waistband got looser. The second mistake is one I made for even longer, and it came from a place I never would have suspected. Take a look at your kitchen right now. If you've been choosing the low-fat version of anything, yogurt, dressing, milk, this one is for you. I spent years buying low-fat versions of everything because I was taught fat makes you fat. What I didn't know is that when manufacturers remove fat, they usually add sugar to bring the flavor back. I was trading a nutrient my body needed for one that was working against me. Here's what actually happens when fat is removed from a food like yogurt or milk. There's nothing left to slow down how fast that sugar hits your bloodstream. Added sugar on its own spikes blood sugar and drops off quickly, which is part of why you're hungry again within an hour. Fat does the opposite. It slows digestion and helps you stay satisfied for longer. So the low-fat swap wasn't reducing what my body had to manage. It was often adding to it. I switched to full-fat plain yogurt, real olive oil, whole avocado instead of light spreads. The first week felt wrong. I'd spent decades avoiding this exact thing, but I stopped feeling hungry 2 hours after breakfast, which had been happening to me for years without my realizing it was connected. The third mistake is the one that surprised me the most, because I thought I was doing everything right by avoiding it. If your exercise routine is mostly cardio, walking, cycling, the elliptical, and you've been avoiding weights because you didn't want to bulk up, this last one matters more than the first 2 combined. I did cardio almost exclusively for years because I thought it was the most efficient way to burn fat. What actually happened is I was losing muscle, not just fat. And after menopause, that muscle loss speeds up on its own with or without exercise. Muscle is what keeps your metabolism running efficiently at rest. Less muscle means your body burns less throughout the day, even if your workouts stay the same. It's also connected to how well your body manages blood sugar. More muscle mass tends to mean better insulin sensitivity, which circles back to that fat storage response around the midsection. I added 2 short strength sessions a week. Nothing extreme, resistance bands, and body weight moves at first. It wasn't the cardio that finally moved the number. It was the weeks after I started lifting that my measurements actually began to shift. Looking back, none of these 3 mistakes came from laziness or lack of effort. They came from following advice that was right for a different decade of my life. I was doing everything I'd always done, in a body that needed something different, and nobody had told me that. If you've been trying just as hard as I was, and still not seeing the results you expect, I don't think it's you. I think it's the instructions. Quick note, I'm not a doctor, and nothing in this video is medical advice. This is my personal experience, and what worked for my body. Always talk to your doctor before making changes to your diet or exercise routine, especially during menopause. If any of these 3 mistakes sound familiar, subscribe. I'm covering exactly what I eat in a typical day next. And tell me in the comments, which of these 3 were you doing without realizing it? For a lot of you, I'd guess it's the first one.